Hello, thank you for watching this Prism Connect training video. My name is Shannon, and I will be guiding you through training session number 1. In this training session, we are going to talk about the Patient Information tab, as well as the Appointment Scheduling tab, and some of the underlying details within each of those tabs. There's also a couple general features that I'm going to talk about here at the very beginning. So with that, let's get started. As you can see, I'm on the login window of the Prism Connect application. I'm going to go to the login code and type in my login code, if I can type correctly, my user ID, and a password. Now I'm going to try and log in, but I mistyped something about my credentials. So what happens after you have a failed login attempt is appearing to the left of the login button. You'll notice a link here called Forgot Password. And if you have forgotten your password, you can go ahead and click that link. This opens up a little dialog which allows you to reset your password. If you decide to reset your password, the system will automatically assign a new password for that user, for you, and that new password will be emailed to you. So it is important to make sure that you have valid email addresses defined for each of the users, because it is that email address that is utilized by the system when password resets are performed. At this point, I'm not going to reset my password, so I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to correct my my password here in this case and click the login button, and I still have something wrong, so let me try that again. Oh, good grief. Let's try my the login code, user ID, and password fields are all case sensitive, so it is important to make sure that you have the case specified correctly. Upon successfully logging into the application, I'm taken immediately to the Patient's Information tab within the Patient Management Suite. The Patient Management Suite is what we refer to as this collection of tabs going across the top of the application window, where you have the schedule, audiogram, PAs or purchase agreements, orders, invoicing, events, form letters, etc. That's what we refer to as the Patient Management Suite. If I click on the Main tab, that takes me out to an area where we have access to other features and functionality within the application. Okay. While we're here, let me make mention of the Help section, where you have access to download a user guide. That's a PDF document with all of the details about the system. So you can just click on the link and download the PDF. We also have a collection of training videos. Let me go into the training videos. The first time you click it, it may look like the system isn't doing anything. Just be patient. It's loading some forms and downloading some information that will present a listing of training videos. So what you'll see here is just a variety of different training videos covering different topics. For any one topic, or you can select the topic of your choice, select the video that corresponds, and then click the Watch Video button. That will take you to a window where it has a little player here within the form. So you can see that we have a close window button here at the very bottom, and right above that is just a little video player. So what you'll need to do once the video loads is just click on the little play button appearing here, and then the video will begin to play. Okay, I'm going to click close window. In order to watch the training videos, you do need to have QuickTime installed, and as a convenience, we do offer a button here which opens up a link to the QuickTime website. QuickTime is available from Apple, and you can download. You can get QuickTime for free and download it easily from the Apple site. So that's the training videos. The other thing available here on the Help grouping is a link called Contact Us. Here is the OddServe email address and phone number, which you can use to contact us here at OddServe. We'd be happy to help you in any way that you need, answer any questions, provide guidance in terms of how to use the system, anything of that nature. So feel free to contact us, and we'd be happy to help you out. Okay, in the upper right hand corner on many of the windows within the application, you'll see a little drop down. In this case, the drop down is showing my user ID in the first item of the list. That just lets us know who's logged into the application. That isn't very important, but what is available here and is worth mentioning is your ability to change the password at any point in time. So if you click the change password option there in the drop down, you're presented with a series of fields. One to enter the current password, and then your ability to specify the new password and confirm the new password, and then just go ahead and submit it. Doing so will immediately change the password, and that will be take effect immediately thereafter. I'm not going to change my password at this time, so I'm just going to cancel out of that window. The other thing that appears in the drop-down list is just the ability to sign out of the application. So if I choose sign out, just a nice simple log out of the system and make sure that everything is shut down correctly. So that's the drop down in the upper right hand corner, and you'll see that in a lot of places within the application. So if I go back into the patient management suite, that drop down is appearing here as well. So let's get started with the patient information tab. As you can see, I'm in the patient information tab, but I don't have a patient record selected. So how do you bring up a patient record that may already exist in the system? Well, you can click in this little search button. That opens up a little patient search dialog. By default, each user can be assigned to a preferred clinic. In this case, my preferred clinic is Plymouth. So by default, when I'm doing a patient search, the search is going to restrict the listing of patients to only those of the specified clinic. If I want to expand my search results to include any clinic, then I can just go ahead and choose the blank clinic at the very top of the clinic filter. And now when I perform a search, I will be getting a list of all patients regardless of the clinic that the patient is tied to. Okay. I'll go ahead and reselect Plymouth again from the drop-down list. In terms of searching for patients, you can do so by any of the options available here under the search type. You could type in a portion of an address, type in a serial number, city, first name, last name, phone number, state, zip, any of that information. So if I wanted to search by zip code and I entered 55447 and hit search, that would bring back a listing of all the patients in that zip code. Okay. AIDS serial number, if I wanted to search for, let's say I had a serial number in my a hearing aid in my hand and I couldn't remember which patient it belonged to, I could type in that serial number and it would bring back the patient record that corresponds to that AIDS serial number. So those are some of the options available to you. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and do another search, and I'll do so for looking for Smiths. In this case, for the Plymouth Clinic, I have 7 patients with the last name of Smith, or beginning with the last name of Smith. Now, by default, I'm only seeing patients that are currently active. So we have a 2-state status in the Prism Connect system. They're either active or they're archived. So if you have a patient that is deceased or maybe moved out of the area and somebody that you're not likely to ever see again, you can flag that patient record as archived. What that does is prevents that patient record from showing up in your patient search results. If you want to include archived patients, notice that in the lower left-hand corner of the patient search dialog is a checkbox in which you can include archived patients. Now if I perform a search that doesn't change, in this case I must not have any deceased Smiths. Let me just clear out the search information here and perform my search. So I have 354 patients that include archived patients. Now if I deselect the archived patient flag, notice that that number drops down to 341. So that's just a listing of all of my patient records. When I don't specify any criteria and just hit search, I'll get everybody that's in the patient database. Within the listing of patients, in many places throughout the application, when you're looking at a list of information such as this patient list, you can often click on the column headers to sort the data within the listing according to the column that you've selected. So I just clicked on the first name column heading, and now the listing of patients is sorted alphabetically by first name. If I click on the last name column heading, now all the patient records are sorted alphabetically by last name. So any of the column headers you can click on to sort your patient list. Let me go back and search for patient records beginning with the last name of Smith. Let's say I think I want to look at this Gertrude Smith patient record, so I'm going to select that row, click the OK button. That opens up this patient record. Now you notice that I had a limited search results for my patient search. I've got it limited to just 7 records in this case. So I'm looking at Gertrude Smith. Appearing to the left and to the right of the patient ID fields are these little VCR buttons. Based on your search results, you can toggle forward and backward through that listing of through that patient list. So if I toggle back one, now I'm looking at Sandra Smith. So depending on the type of search, you can kind of use these little VCR buttons as a way to just kind of toggle through a limited set of records. I mean, additionally, if you were to just click in the search dialog, if you were to just bring back all of your patient records and then just wanted to start at the top, you could certainly do that and then just toggle through. So if you're looking for just kind of wanting to look through patient records, this would be your ability to do so. You'll notice that as I go into some of the patient records, like this one for Jacqueline Smith, a little prompt opens up warning me that, hey, as I'm looking at the Jacqueline Smith record, be advised that we do not have a HIPAA date entered for this patient. And what that essentially means is that we're missing a date here on the HIPAA date. And so ideally, as patients are coming into your clinic, you're providing the HIPAA disclosure form to them and then having them sign off on that. As soon as they've signed off on that HIPAA disclosure, you can edit the patient record, input that HIPAA disclosure date. So do so as of today's date, and go ahead and save that record. Now the next time I toggle through the patient records or open up the Jacqueline Smith record, now that message is suppressed. I don't get that warning about the HIPAA date not being entered. Okay, so that's kind of a relatively new feature that we added to the Prism Connect system, where you can kind of toggle through the different patient records. Let's talk a little bit about some of the information here on the patient information screen. I'm going to go into edit mode so we can click on the drop downs and expand them to see what's available. I mentioned the patient status a moment ago. We have 2 state status that are either active or archived. Just go ahead and choose archived if the patient is deceased or perhaps moved out of the area, or it's just somebody that you know that you're not going to deal with going forward. Go ahead and archive that record. The record is not deleted, it's still available, as we saw in the patient search, where you can bring up or include archived patients. Just going to kind of tab through and discuss some of the fields available here. Date in which the patient identity has been verified, you can input a date there. HIPAA disclosure date, so as soon as the patient has received their HIPAA disclosure form and signed off on it, you can input that date. Patient code is a customizable drop-down list in which you can further classify or code your patient records with just a few examples appearing in this list. You can define what drop-down values appear in this list out in the administration area. Additionally, payment type is another configurable drop-down list that you can manage and maintain. So you can specify which values appear in the payment type. Some clients are using this payment type as a way to denote patients who have had a history of paying in timely fashion. So they might flag them as one who needs to pay cash only, or maybe pay in advance, scenarios like that. So again, you can configure and define this drop-down list to your own preference. If they are a Medicaid patient, you can flag them as such, After doing so, the Medicaid number field becomes enabled, within which I can enter in the Medicaid number. If a patient has gone into collections and you want to record when that patient has gone into collections, this would be the place in which you can do so. If you do flag a patient as being in collections, you will receive a warning anytime you're creating a new appointment for this patient. Just a little message will pop up indicating that the patient is in collections, and it just serves as a warning or reminder that you may have some problems with this patient if you decide to go ahead and meet with them and incur any additional invoices for that patient. So after the collection state, we get into some of the patient demographic information. Pretty standard fare. A prefix for the patient name, first and middle last name, space for a nickname if you want to record it. The full name field is not editable. It's always a combination of the first and last name. The system will just automatically populate this field for you. Address line 1, address line 2, so if there's apartment or suite number that you want to record, that address line 2 could accommodate that. And then we get down into the city. City, state, and zip fields are available here. You can obviously type into these fields and populate accordingly. Additionally, there are these little buttons appearing above the city, state, and zip. Find city and find zip. The way in which you can use these is an alternative to typing in the city, state, and zip field information. Let me spell Plymouth correctly. The idea here is that you can type in a city name and it'll bring back a listing of all valid cities in the United States and the corresponding zip codes. Excuse me. So from this list you can select the city and the corresponding zip code. The whole idea here is that this is a way to accurately specify the city, state, and zip, meaning that the city name is spelled correctly and the zip code corresponds accordingly. Alternatively, if you know the zip code and want to populate the city name accordingly, you can also just type in a zip code, and that'll bring back a listing of valid cities that correspond to that zip code. And then again, you can just double click on that corresponding city name and it will populate accordingly. The alt address button is available as a way to record an alternate address for the patient. Maybe it's a seasonal address where they winter down in Florida or some other area. You can record that alternate address here. It could also be used to denote a responsible party for the patient. So maybe there's another person that tends to take care of the business matters for this patient. In which case you can record, the name of that responsible party, whatever their address would be, and then you can denote this person as the responsible party. You can denote the relationship that corresponds to the patient, and then save this information here in the alternate address. Anytime there's information behind the alternate address button, the text of this button will appear in red. If there isn't any data behind it, the text will appear in black. So it's just kind of a visual indicator of there being information behind. The way in which we use the responsible party designation in the application is that all patient statements or invoices would be addressed not to the patient but instead to the responsible party. So in this case, Anthony Smith would be receiving the mailing for the statement or any patient invoices. The patient name will also appear on the statement and on the invoices, but in the area that's to be used in the mailing envelope, it would be that of the responsible party. Okay. We have 3 different phone number fields: home or a generic phone number field, cell and work, gender, date of birth. With respect to dates, you can enter in, there's kind of a handy little feature for entering dates, where if I just enter in a 1 in this case, the system will automatically assign the current month and the current year to that date. So if I do 0610, it's going to default the year to, or the date to June 10 of 2013. In the case where you're entering in a date of birth, it's important to make sure that you enter in complete month, day, and year, including the century. So if I need to enter in the date of birth here, I want to make sure that I enter in the complete century. Otherwise, the system will take 19. Let's say I just do 514 of 45. The system is going to assign that to the current century, which would not be what you had intended. Instead, we would want that to be 1945 or 1935, whatever the case may be. Okay, so just go ahead and enter in a complete century. Elsewhere, like on the collections date or some of the other date fields, it's kind of handy. So if you wanted today's date to drop in, you could just enter in whatever the current day is, and the current month and year will default. I do 15, current month and year will drop in. So that's kind of a handy little way in which dates can be populated throughout the system. You can assign a preferred clinician or and clinic to the patient. So in this case, we have Lawrence Hagen assigned as the clinician and Plymouth being the clinic. We have a space here to record the significant other. Could be a spouse, could be some other friend or a relative that is tied to this patient. With respect to the significant other, you can define what that relationship is. So we have a drop-down list of different relationships that might be applicable. Then as we're tabbing through the fields, the next thing that becomes enabled is the referral source. Next to the referral source is a little search button. Where I click on that search button, it opens up a little pop-up which presents a listing of referral sources that have previously been defined. So out in the administration area, you can define what referral sources you would want to use within the system. You can see here that I have a direct mail, newspaper, a few different referral sources. Direct mail appears a few different times, and that is because we have not only defined a referral source of direct mail, but we've also gone a step further, and we've defined a marketing campaign. That is, we did a mailer in the fall of 2012, and then we did another one in the winter of 2013, and another one in spring of 2013. So we sent out these promotional pieces, about our clinic, in each of these time periods, and maybe you have promo codes associated with them. So out in the administration area, you can define referral sources and marketing campaigns. The more specific you can be about what's bringing patients into your office, the better metrics you will have on what marketing efforts are succeeding or not succeeding. Okay, so we give you the ability to select a generic piece, so you can see that direct mail appears here without a marketing campaign, as well as appearing 3 times for each of the marketing campaigns that we have defined. So if you know that it's a specific marketing campaign, you can select it from the list. If you're a little less certain about which piece it was, you can still just denote it as a direct mail piece, newspaper ad, whatever. And so you can associate and define your own marketing campaigns and associate them with the different referral sources that you have maintained, set up as well. Okay. After selecting a referral source, you can double click on it or click the OK button. It brings that information back into the referral source field. You notice that the referral source field has an underline and an asterisk next to it. In addition, name, address, city, phone, clinic, clinician, clinic, and the date of birth. These are all required fields, so in order to save a new patient record, you do need to populate name, address, phone, all those fields that have the asterisks and the underline appearing next to them. We made referral source a required field because we felt it was important enough and provided enough information to the business owners to let them know, which marketing pieces were succeeding or not succeeding as they're tracking that information. So we've made a required field. Corresponding to the referral source, we offer a couple other fields for any sub-referral source. If the referral source was maybe like a patient referral or physician referral, you can use the referred by field as a way to denote who that other person was. If the patient does not want to receive any mailings from you or any phone calls, you can flag accordingly, and another little checkbox to denote if the phone has been disconnected. The patient's physician can be denoted here in this drop-down. You can define the physicians that you receive referrals from or that are related to your patients out in the main module of the application. Some clients have established such a lengthy list of physicians that they found this drop-down to be a bit cumbersome. So as an alternative to selecting a physician from the drop-down, you can additionally click on the little search dialog that appears to the right to also perform a search on your physician. So again, we offer a search type drop-down that allows you to search for physicians by any of the information appearing in this drop-down list. You can just enter in your search criteria and then hit the search button to perform the search. Select the physician that corresponds, and then that information will drop down into the patient-physician field. Okay, as I continue tabbing through the field, the next field that we end up in is the notes field, where you can use this for any purpose you want. Freeform text field. Below that is a listing of any balances or of invoices that the patient has outstanding. We show it with the aging, so you can kind of get a sense of whether this patient has any outstanding balances and how far since the invoice was created, how long ago that balance has been due. So just kind of at a glance, you can see whether or not this patient has any outstanding balances. Below the balances due section is a space where you can define any recall schedules that the patient is on. So in this case, we want to see this patient annually for a hearing test, as well as every 3 months for wax removal. So to manage this information, you can double click on that field. It opens up a little dialog where you can add or remove a patient from different recall schedules. So if we've been seeing this patient every 3 months and we decide that that is too frequent, we want to remove them from the 3-month removal, and maybe we want to see them every 6 months instead. You can manage that, which types of recalls they are on. You can make up your own recall schedules. You can define exactly what these are and how frequently patients would, or how frequently you would be reminded to contact these patients to schedule their next recall appointment. So this is the way in which you can manage patient recalls. Just go ahead and click OK to save that information. In this middle space is a little designation to denote if the patient is on a discount program. Discount program might be like a battery club membership, where the patient is, for a period of 1 year, 18 months, 2 years, whatever the case may be, is entitled to free batteries or discounted batteries, or maybe free batteries and discounts on other products and services. Within the application, we have a module where you can define discount programs and put a patient on a discount program. The advantage of doing so is that the system will keep track of when the patient is on a discount program and when that expires. So as soon as you are creating an invoice for the patient, if you're selling them product that is eligible for some sort of discount, then the system will automatically calculate that discount until that patient's discount program expiration has expired or passed. another type of discount program that you can define in the system is not for necessarily a patient, but some clients will define a discount program that applies to a specific hearing aid, and so you can also manage that information out in administration, where you can define discount programs and what type of discount program it is. Below the patient demographic information is the latest hearing results that were determined for this patient and when that last test was performed. So in this case, we see that what the right ear and left ear hearing loss was for this patient when they were last tested. If they were suffering from tinnitus or having balance problems, that could be denoted here. And if the patient was tested but then they did not decide to purchase hearing aids from you, then that would be considered a test no sale. And the system would keep track of when they were tested, when that potential sale could have occurred. And then this patient, based on that date, would be eligible for maybe receiving any mailings regarding a test no sale situation. So you can do some follow-up on those patients that come in or have hearing loss but decide not to purchase hearing aids. So this TNS stands for tested not sold date, and that would be populated by the system automatically. This right ear and left ear hearing loss and all this information appearing in this little grouping is cannot be changed here. Instead, that is populated when you are closing out appointment outcomes or closing appointments, and that's what we call appointment outcomes. So that information just kind of flows back into the patient information screen. Excuse me. So what you're hopefully recognizing here is that we're trying to present a lot of information here that without forcing you to go to other tabs or other screens to kind of get a glimpse of what the status is with the patient. That's why we show balance is due here. That's why we show the hearing loss information here. It's also why we show you a listing of the hearing aids, ear molds, and accessories that this patient may have. Down in this lower left-hand corner would be a listing of that product. So we have them kind of abbreviated, or these types explaining what type of product it is. So HA stands for hearing aid, EM for ear molds, AC for an accessory or an option. Any of the items down in this lower left-hand corner, you can double-click on it to open up a little pop-up that shows even more information about that product. Serial numbers, of course, the manufacturer, battery size, warranty expiration dates, when it was originally sold. If you wanted to manage or change the wear priority, you can do that simply by clicking on the edit button here. It takes you to a screen where you can choose from the drop-down list whether it's a primary or secondary hearing aid. The system automatically advances priority statuses as new aids are being sold, but if you needed to ever edit or manage or change those selections, you can do so via this button here. So that's the way in which you can get more information about any of the product appearing down in this list. To just double click on the corresponding item. The lower right hand corner of the module shows a listing of appointments that the patient has had or is scheduled to have. These would be both past and future appointments. You can double click on one of the appointment dates and it will take you to the schedule for that selected date. And it is a quick way to kind of navigate to the schedule for a date in which a patient has an appointment or had an appointment. Okay. So that's kind of a good overview of all the information presented here. Oh, one more thing before I forget. There's a button here to the right. So we've given you a lot of information here, but if you need more and you find that we're missing something that you also need to track, custom fields would be the place where you can denote it. So when I click on the Custom Fields button, a little pop-up window appears where you have 10 different fields, 8 freeform text fields as well as 2 checkboxes, where you can define the label that would correspond to each of the fields. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them denoted here. So if I wanted to, just record that this patient's favorite activity is golf, I could type that in here. These last 3 freeform text fields are not assigned, meaning I have no label associated with them. You can define what these labels are next to each of these fields, and then use the fields according to your needs. The last 2 of which would be reserved for simple yes/no answers. So again, just a couple examples. Is this a patient that wears hearing aids? Yes. Not that you really need it, because we're keeping track of that information here, but just as an idea, or just as an example of what kind of questions you might want to ask or record here. So any simple yes/no questions that you might want to denote a response to can be denoted just by clicking on the check boxes. All of these custom fields or special fields can be used to generate lists of patients. So if you wanted to generate a list of all patients that were interested in golf, you can certainly do so out in the marketing exports area out on Main. Alright, so we've made a few changes to our patient record. We're still in edit mode. You can see that new and edit are disabled here. I'm going to click the OK button to save these changes. After saving those changes, buttons become available down the lower right hand corner. Patient information sheet is available just as a single page document that you could use to print out some more, actually use as a printout of some of the information that you've recorded here in the patient record. Additionally, any filing labels that you might want to produce for this patient record, you can generate. If you want to generate an envelope for the patient, you could do that here. And then the last button that's available here is called Uploads. If I click on that, what that allows me to do is to link or attach any electronic files to this patient record. You can see here that we have a couple examples of some documents that had previously been uploaded and tied to this patient record. So from any computer in which you're accessing, the Prism Connect system, if you ever want to look at one of these documents, you can just select it and then say View Document, and the document will be open with whatever application corresponds to the type of file that you've selected. So this is just an example of an invoice, and if you had attached a spreadsheet, then that would you can view that spreadsheet here as well. So the system will just download that document and then opens it up with whichever application is applicable. If you want to upload or attach another file and tie it to this patient record, you can just go ahead and select the Upload File button. That opens up a little dialog where you can navigate and search, on your computer or on your network for any documents that you might want to tie to this patient record. So let's say we wanted to take this example of a PDF. After selecting the file, then you can just type in a description. So here's another example of a PDF. And then click the Upload button. Okay, and now that document has also been tied to the patient record. From here you can again just click on that View Document button, and that document would be downloaded and then opened up. So that's your ability to scan or upload any scanned documents. So it could be any image files that you have, Word, Excel, PDFs, text files, whatever the case may be. I think I've covered everything I wanted to on the patient information tab. Oh, no, I didn't. So far, everything that we've been doing is we've just been looking at an existing patient record. So if you had performed your search and couldn't find the patient record you were looking for, again, excuse me, if you determine that this is not the patient record that you want to work with and you realize you need to create a new patient record, well, it's just as simple as clicking on the new button here. And then you go into edit mode for that new record, and then you're taken to the patient status, where by default it will be an active patient. If the patient ID has been verified, you can just kind of tab your way through the fields, populate accordingly. So let's say I want to create a new record for John Smith. Oh, looks like we have some John Smiths already in the system. So you notice that after I entered the name of John Smith in the patient record, the system did a little search of any existing patients that have a similar name. So in this case, this is just letting us know, hey, just be advised that we have some other John Smith records already in the system. This is just an effort to help eliminate any duplicate patient records. So if you realize that, oh, I don't really need to create a new John Smith record, instead what I really want is I need to just work with one of these existing patient records, well, then you can just select it from the list, click OK, and then you'll that corresponding patient record will be open. Then you have the ability to edit and make any changes that you need to the patient record. If you look at this list and see that, no, it's none of these patients, I need to in fact create a new patient record, then just go ahead and click cancel here, and then you will just be able to continue or resume entry of the new information for this new patient record. I'm not going to proceed with the creation of this new patient record, so anytime you're editing a new record or creating a new record or editing an existing record, if you click the cancel button, any changes that you've made will be discarded. And so just go ahead and say yes to that prompt, and then you can continue on your way. So that's the patient information tab, and now I have covered everything that I wanted to on this tab. So let's continue. Let's say that Gertrude has called up and she's having some problem with her hearing aids and wants to schedule an appointment just to have somebody help her look at the hearing aids. So let's go to the schedule tab. Anytime you kind of navigate to other tabs within the patient management suite, what you'll notice is that the last patient record that you were looking at becomes the active patient record as you go into the other tabs. Again, excuse me. So here on the schedule, you'll notice that Gertrude Smith is still our active patient record. What that allows us to do is to create a new appointment, and when we do so, we're going to be doing so on behalf of Gertrude Smith or for Gertrude Smith. So on the left-hand side here, we have a calendar that can be used as a way to navigate the schedule. By default, we'll come into the schedule looking at the current day's schedule. You can pick a different day within the calendar to change the view. Below the calendar, or actually let me just stick with the calendar up above, there's a little VCR button appearing to the left of the month and to the year, where you can use to go back a month. So I go back to June, back to May. You can use the month drop down to jump ahead, so if you want to go out and look at October, whatever the case may be, or you can click on the little VCR button pointing to the right, and that will advance the calendar out to the next month. So whatever current view you're looking at, the VCR buttons are a way to toggle back and forth, forward a month or back a month. You can use the drop down to control the years. If you want to go ahead a year or back a year, or many years, whatever the case may be, you can manage accordingly. If I go back to, say I want to go back to January and kind of look at the schedule as of some date in January, you have the ability to do so. Immediately below the calendar, there's a button called Today. If I click on that, always brings me right back to the current day and the schedule for that day. Okay. Below the calendar is a little few different radio buttons and drop downs that control the view. So the default is I'm looking at the schedule in day mode, where I'm just looking at a single day's appointments. When I'm in day mode, the schedule is designed to accommodate up to 5 different clinicians. So I have 3 different columns reserved for clinicians. We only have two of which being used. So Donna Carlson and Lawrence Hagen. If I scroll to the right, you'll see a couple more columns which could be used to accommodate a 4th or a 5th clinician. You can toggle the schedule over and look at it in week mode, where you'll be looking at the schedule again for the same clinic, but now a clinician becomes selected automatically. So now we're just looking at the schedule for just Lawrence Hagen, and here's what his here's what his week looks like. You can use the drop down to choose a different clinician. So if I want to look at Donna Carlson's schedule, the ability to navigate accordingly. And so that's sort of the difference between day mode and week mode. Okay. If you have test rooms that you use at your clinic, and you need to schedule test rooms and make sure that there's no conflicts with duplicate appointments being scheduled, you can look at the schedule for test rooms as well. When you select the view to look at it by test room, you're often going to be doing so along with a clinician in mind. So it's like, I want to schedule an appointment for Lawrence Hagen in one of the test rooms that I have defined here. So you can see for my Plymouth clinic, I have 2 test rooms, test room 1 and test room 2. And we're seeing those here on the schedule as columns. We're also seeing the schedule for Lawrence Hagen. And so we can control which clinician we're kind of looking at the schedule for the test rooms as well as the clinician simultaneously. That allows us to consider, both the clinician's appointments and any appointments that are on the schedule for one of the test rooms. So if we needed to carve out a portion of time for this appointment for Gertrude Smith in one of the test rooms, we could kind of be looking at Lawrence's schedule as well as Gertrude's schedule simultaneously. And you can see here that Lawrence has an appointment scheduled for John Smith at 1 o'clock, and that's happening in test room 2 because we see that same appointment here showing up in test room number 2. And some other clinician must have an appointment scheduled with George Lucas at 1 o'clock in test room number 1. So that's just kind of a way to look at the schedule for test rooms and or clinicians. Now if you toggle the view over to week mode for a test room, then you're only looking at one test room at a time, and then you can kind of just see the schedule expanded out for the given week, and you see all of the appointments for that test room. Alright, so let me go back into look at the schedule for a clinician. We're looking at it for Lawrence Hagen. Below the grouping here for controlling the view, we have a listing of predefined appointments that we have previously defined. For each of these appointments, well, let me just say it like this. You can define your own appointment types. So again, out in administration, you can make up or define whatever appointment types you need for your organization. The idea behind this appointment type list is you can drag and drop one of these predefined appointment types onto the schedule. So let's say Gertrude is called and she wants to schedule an appointment. She's having some problem with her hearing aid. So we're going to schedule that type of appointment on the schedule. And what you can do is just simply take that appointment type, drag it over and drop it onto the schedule in the time slot when that patient wants to be scheduled. So let's say we've got an opening here at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that appointment in at 10 o'clock. The appointment gets scheduled for Gertrude Smith. You can see her name just starting to appear here, and as I hover over that appointment in the little pop-up text here, we show that this is for Gertrude Smith. Now each of these appointment types have a predefined duration, this one being a 30-minute appointment. You can define what the default durations will be for each appointment type as well as for each clinician. So if certain clinicians want to have longer appointment types for the same or for certain types of appointments, you have the ability to manage that information. Within the schedule, you also have the ability to kind of select the appointment, and then you can hover over the bottom or top edge of the appointment, and you can expand or contract the appointment. So if I want to make that a 1 hour appointment, I have the ability to do so, or I can contract it the same way. Once you're looking at a schedule for a clinician, you can drag that appointment. So if I didn't mean to do it at 10 o'clock, but instead I meant to do it at 12 o'clock or maybe later in the day, you can move an appointment simply by dragging it and dropping it into a different time slot. When you're looking at the schedule in week view, you can also drag it over and drop it into a different day. So when you're looking at the schedule for a clinician, you could drag and drop appointments into different time slots or different days, depending upon what you're looking at. If you're in day mode, you're restricted to moving that appointment only to different times within the day. If you wanted to move the appointment to a different day or to a different week, as an example, what you can do is select the appointment, and then you can right mouse click on it. That opens up a little pop-up menu where you have a variety of options. We'll talk about each of these here to come, but at this point we're going to select reschedule an appointment, and now we're in a mode where we can move this appointment to a different week. So now I can just go to the schedule or go up here to the calendar, select a different week. So let's say we want to reschedule it for the 16th of July. Then I can go to the schedule, and I'm just going to begin to drag and drop that appointment in a new time slot, and then the appointment gets moved accordingly. Okay. For an appointment, you can also double click on it, and that opens up the appointment details window where you can see the appointment is scheduled for Gertrude Smith. Here's her name and phone number, her date of birth. If she had any insurance information to find, that would appear in the upper right hand corner. If the patient was calling and scheduling the appointment, and you know, when you were talking to the patient, you realize or ask, how did you hear of us? Or what's bringing you in today? Maybe it was some marketing piece that you want to credit. Maybe they saw an ad in the newspaper. You can denote. You can denote what's bringing the patient into the office. So you can record a referral source here. You have the ability to change the date of the appointment here as well. So if you wanted to reschedule it, again, let's say we wanted to move it back to Tuesday the 2nd, we can do that. You can change the clinician, so if Larry called in sick and some other clinician was going to take the appointments instead, you can reassign the clinician here. You can assign a test room, so if Larry's going to see this patient in one of the test rooms, you can assign a test room here. And this is warning us that there's already an appointment scheduled in that test room, so we would potentially be double booking that room, so we can clear that out if there's going to be a conflict. If you selected the wrong appointment type, you can change that here. When is the appointment scheduled to start? The duration of the appointment, resulting in the end time based on the start time and duration. Okay. There's a reason or notes field that you can use to input any notes. So you could say in this case that the patient called and is having some difficulty with her hearing aids. So you can add some additional information that might explain to the clinician why they're coming in. Let's go ahead and click the save button to save the appointment details. Any notes that you've typed into the appointment will begin to be displayed here, and as you hover over an appointment, you'll see some of that text appear as well in the little pop-up text that appears. So you can now see that in this little yellow pop-up text that the patient is called and having some difficulty. Depending upon the view and the length of the appointments, how much text appears in the appointment bubble. So the longer the appointments, the more text that can be displayed. So if I were to expand this out and make it an hour appointment, now you can see more of that text relating to the note that you input. Okay. Um, some of the other appointments that you're seeing on here are block times. So if you needed to carve out a portion of the patient's or a clinician's schedule, maybe they had some, um, you know, a personal appointment on a given day, you can take this block time appointment type, drag it over and drop it into a time slot. So let's say at 4 o'clock Lawrence is going to leave early and he's got some personal appointment. So you can enter in a block time that's going to carve out a portion of the schedule. You can define the duration just by selecting the drop down. So in this case where he's leaving at 4, maybe your appointments typically are only booked until 5 o'clock. You can just increment the duration as needed. The default duration is always an hour for block times, but you can adjust accordingly as needed. And then in the reasons or notes, just enter any notes that you want for that block time. And then that will show up on the schedule in kind of a dull gray color. Now you notice that this block time is just does not have any icon appearing next to it, where this one does. This little icon indicates that it's a recurring block time. So if you have a block time or are creating a block time and you want it to recur on certain days of the week for a period of time, you can manage that information as well. So you can double click on the appointment details. There's a little button here that shows that little circular arrow buttons. This is a non-recurring block time by default. If I wanted to make it a recurring block time, I can denote what the start date is, and that is going to be the original block time start date and the start and end time. When do I want it to end? So if it's something that I want to recur for, let's say, maybe the next 4 weeks, so it's going to happen each of the next 4 Tuesdays, I can expand that out to start on the 2nd and end on the 23rd, and it's going to occur every Tuesday. Well, let's say maybe it's also going to happen on Thursday as well. So I can pick and choose which days of the weeks this appointment is going to recur, and then during this time period, these recurring block times will be created accordingly. So if I go ahead and return to the appointment details, now you can see how this block time is defined. It occurs every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 5. If I go ahead and save that, and if we change the view here to show the week, we'll see that we have that block time at 4 o'clock on Tuesday the 2nd, as well as at 4 o'clock on the 4th. And if we go out a week and look at the 9th, it's also carved out there. And for each of the next 4 weeks, that appointment is carved out. It ends on the 23rd, which is that Tuesday that we denoted as our end time. And so that block time does not get created on Thursday the 25th, because that's outside of our date parameters for a recurring block time. Okay, so it's very easy to create these recurring block times. For any appointments, including block times, if you want to delete them, you can select the appointment and then click on, from the pop-up window, you can select Delete Appointment. Additionally, you can double-click on the appointment details. Now, when you're modifying recurring block times, you have the ability to change a single occurrence of a block time. So in this case, the appointment on the 23rd. If I just wanted to change that one occurrence, I could do so. Maybe I want to have it start at, let's say, 2 o'clock on that day and go for 3 hours through the 5 o'clock hour. I can go ahead and save that. So for that one occurrence of the block time, now I've got an exception to it, and it starts at 2 o'clock. If I go to any of the other block times, you'll see that they are still at scheduled from 4 to 5. So I have one exception to it. Okay. Now if I wanted to delete one occurrence of the block time, I can go ahead and do so. I'm presented with an option: do I want to delete this one occurrence, or do I want to delete the whole series? So let's say I wanted to cancel this appointment altogether, cancel whatever the reason was. If I needed to free up the schedule again, I can delete that one occurrence, and now that one instance will be deleted. Again, if I go back to different weeks, those recurring block times still appear here. Again, if I wanted to delete the appointment, and let's say I wanted to delete the whole series, I can do that as well. Now they're gone for all of the weeks in between. Okay. Similarly, if I wanted to delete an appointment for, again, our patient for Gertrude Smith, let's say I just for whatever reason wanted to delete that appointment, I can simply right mouse click on it. Additionally, you can drill down into the appointment details. There's a delete button available in here. You can simply click on the delete button here as another way to delete an appointment for a patient. Okay. The other remaining appointment type that shows up in our list of appointment types is that for a quick new patient appointment. If I drag over and drop that onto a day, what happens is the appointment details automatically open up. And this gives me an opportunity to carve out a portion of the schedule without selecting a specific patient. So in this case, there's no patient selected by default. Maybe it's somebody who's responding to some marketing piece, and I don't have a chance to create a new patient record yet, but I just want to get some time scheduled on the calendar. So maybe it's this John Smith that's calling. So I'm just going to record as much information as I can about the patient here in the appointment notes. Maybe his phone number. Called inquiring about hearing aids, whatever the case may be. You can add any notes you want here. Now this appointment will be saved without attaching it to a specific patient record. We can denote what type of appointment it is, so maybe they're going to do a hearing aid evaluation. That's going to be scheduled accordingly based on the clinician's preferred duration. Then we can go ahead and save that appointment. So now we've got something on the schedule. We don't necessarily have to have that patient record created, so then later as time permits we can go to the Patients tab and then go ahead and create a new patient record for John Smith. Then later, after creating that new patient record, then you can go back into the appointment details. You can click on the magnifying glass here appearing next to the patient ID field, and then you can perform your search for any John Smiths and then tie that new patient record that you created to this existing appointment. So now you've got John Smith tied to the appointment. Okay, so several ways in which you can schedule appointments, either for existing patients or potentially new patients. As you select different appointments within the schedule, you notice that the active or the current patient record that you're working with changes accordingly. So if I select this appointment, then that patient record changes according to the last appointment I've selected, and so will all of the underlying information within the corresponding tabs. So if I have clicked on this appointment, John Whistler becomes the active patient. If I go to the invoicing tab for that patient, I'm doing so for John Whistler. If I go back to the schedule, click on this appointment for Jane Thomas, she becomes the active patient record. If I go to the invoicing tab or any other tabs, I'll be doing so on behalf of Jane Thomas. So just be advised that as you're working with different appointments on the schedule, the current patient record that you're working in will change. And so that's kind of handy, especially as you're kind of closing out a day's appointments or dealing with different patients that are coming in and out on a given day. So if I click on Jim Gordon and go to the Patients tab, it's automatically brought up the Jim Gordon record. Okay. If I wanted to print out my schedule, I can do so by clicking on the Print Schedule button. That will print out the schedule for the current day that I have selected. If I'm in week view and I'm looking at just one clinician's schedule, then I'll get just that clinician's schedule here in the printable version. If I'm in day mode and looking at both Donna and Lawrence and I print the schedule, now I've got the schedule for both Donna Carlson and another page for Lawrence Hagen. Sales Opportunities is a button that's available to just kind of get a glimpse of the number of different types of appointments that are scheduled for a given day. again, depending upon the view in which you're looking at. So now if I'm in week view, and let's say I look at the view for Lawrence Hagen and click on sales opportunities, now I'm looking at the number of appointments that are scheduled for Lawrence in that time period. So each clinician can kind of get a sense of what their week or what their day looks like in terms of different appointments and what kind of sales opportunities they might have based on the appointment types that are scheduled. Let's see. Let's schedule another appointment here, and let's do so for Gertrude Smith. So I'm going to bring up Gertrude Smith. So here's Gertrude Smith. I'm going to schedule an appointment for her. Select the hearing aid problem that she had called about and save it. So now for this appointment, and maybe it wouldn't make sense for hearing aid problem, but the other thing that you can do on some of these appointments, if you right mouse click on the appointment, you can access some other options, including the ability to create or print a super bill. So if I select that item, this will bring up a form that you can use to print out for each of the appointments that you have in a given day. It includes a listing of different diagnosis codes or procedure codes that might be performed during the examination. The super bill, that printable form, let me go back to it here for a moment. This form could be used as a checklist by the clinician. So if they didn't want to, if the clinician just wanted to kind of use this as a checklist and record the different diagnoses or procedure codes that were performed, this form could be handed off to maybe somebody working at a front desk who might be responsible for inputting this information into the system. So that's available for each of the appointments. You can right mouse click on an appointment and create or print the super bill on an appointment by appointment basis. Or for the current day's appointments, I have Tuesday the 2nd selected. If I click on today's super bills, that will generate a super bill form for all of the appointments scheduled on that given day. So here's one for Peter Redlick, and you're just going to get multiple pages for each of the appointments that are scheduled. Okay. You can configure what diagnosis codes appear and what procedure codes appear on the printed super bill, and that's available out in the administration area. The whole idea behind that printed super bill is that you can then use that, hand it off to the front desk person who might be responsible for inputting the information into the system. On the appointment details, or right mouse clicking on the appointment, you notice that one of the options here is go into the super bill. So I'm going to do that now. That takes me to a window where I can go into edit mode and then select the billing type that corresponds to. So if I'm going to submit this to insurance, I can flag this as an insurance billing. When insurance is selected, you'll notice that the bill insurance checkbox becomes enabled for each of those items. In addition, these radio buttons for insurance waiver, is it required, not required, is it required and completed, so you can denote according to the radio buttons what is necessary. So if it's required and completed, then we can select a physician from the drop-down list, whether the ABN has been signed, and if so, or whether it was required, and if so, has it been completed. Any notes for the super bill can be input here. And then we offer up a drop-down list, or 4 different drop-down lists that can be used to select the diagnoses. So if you wanted to record that impacted cerumen, you also determine that there was acoustic trauma, or whatever the case may be. So you can select up to 4 different diagnosis codes from the predefined drop-down list. And then in addition, you can define up to 6 different procedure codes. So then depending upon the procedure codes that you have selected, some charges can drop into the fields automatically. So for cerumen removal, I have a $100 charge that defaults into the chargeable amount field. I can change this as needed, so that has been advanced to 105. Modifiers I can change as needed, and then you can select what diagnoses. So from diagnoses 1 through 4 above, what does this procedure pertain to? Which diagnosis does it pertain to? So in this case, it's diagnosis 1. How many units you can change as applicable, and then you can choose another procedure code as needed. Enter the chargeable amount. Select the modifier as needed. Let's say that corresponds to number 2, etc., etc. So you can just continue to select items as needed and enter in the chargeable amounts. You can, in addition, you can choose up to 4 different V codes. Included in the V codes would be some of those representing, binaural, programmable BTs as an example, and maybe $2,400 or $3,400, whatever the case may be, would be assessed here. So, depending upon the types of appointments, you're going to use, certain procedure codes or V codes accordingly. Once you have your superbill information input, then you can just go ahead and click the Submit button to save that information. Now, using the superbill information, you can use it to create a CMS 1500 claim form. If you want to go ahead and create a claim form, then you can click on that button. A little pop-up appears asking whether you want to create a claim form and patient invoice, or just the claim form, or just a patient invoice. So just in an effort to minimize the number of duplicate entry of the same information, we give you the ability to select any of the 3 combinations of information that you want to use this superbill information in. Okay. So if I go ahead and choose the 1500 claim form, this is going to come back and warn me that I haven't defined any insurance information yet for this patient. So we need to enter that information first. So let's just we'll bypass that for now. Let's close the window and return to the scheduling tab. The other thing that you can do for your appointments is right mouse click on it, and then you can go into the outcomes. Before we go there, let me show you one more thing that's available. So for a selected appointment, you can print an outcome sheet. The outcome sheet is a form that could be used, again, that could go back with the clinician during the appointment. This form includes some descriptions for whether or not the appointment was completed or not, whether a hearing test was performed, and if so, what was the hearing loss for the right and left ear. Was it a hearing aid sales opportunity, and if so, what was the sales outcome? Then it also gets into some groupings of descriptions that correspond to what might make up your SOAP notes. Categories include history and problem, right ear and left ear results, binaural non-ear specific results, assessment diagnoses, recommendations, and treatment plans. So the descriptions that appear on this form are configurable and manageable in the administration area. But this form, again, could serve as a checklist for the clinician. So if they don't want to be responsible for inputting this information into the system, they could use this as a checklist, hand this form off to the front desk staff, who would then be responsible for inputting the outcome information. So to input that information, you go select the appointment and then go into the outcomes. That window opens up where you have the ability to select what was the quick appointment outcome. Appointment was completed, was a hearing test performed, and if so, what was the hearing loss for the right and left ear. This is where that information comes from that appears in the patient information screen. Now, whether or not the patient is suffering from tinnitus or having balance problems, was it a hearing aid sales opportunity, and if so, what was the outcome of that. If you choose no order, then this would be considered a test no sales situation. And you can see the predefined list of descriptions that would correspond to the no order. And then we offer a section here to input the SOAP notes. Now you can type into this field, but there's a better way to input your SOAP notes, and it corresponds to what we saw printed out on the outcome sheet. So over here on the right hand side there's a little plus button that takes me to a window where I have a collection of tabs, with each of the tabs including a predefined list of history of descriptions that would correspond to these different categories that would make up my SOAP notes. So here on this tab, or in this window, I can just select the applicable descriptions that pertain to my patient record, or to my patient and to the appointment. I can select a variety of different descriptions that apply, add those the selected items to my notes field at the bottom by clicking on the add button, and I can just progress through each of the tabs, selecting the applicable descriptions and adding it to the note, or to this lower section. You notice that at the top there's an ID field, entry field, and next to each of these descriptions there is an ID number. So next to each of these I can just manually type in an ID number and record that ID number. These IDs also are printed out on the outcome sheet. So based on what the clinician has checked off, the person who's inputting this information can just simply enter in ID numbers as a quick way to select the corresponding descriptions. Okay, so obviously I'm just randomly selecting different descriptions for our patient as an example. Once you've worked through each of the tabs, then you can just click the close button. That closes that window and brings all of those descriptions back into your SOAP note narrative field. Okay. Any other notes that you want regarding the appointment can be recorded here. And then and that's kind of the right side of the appointment outcomes. On the left side we just have selected by default the appointment date for which we're entering in the appointment outcome. Below that is the ability to record a one-time recall event. We'll talk more about events in training session number 3, but this is where you can create reminders for yourself or for your colleagues at the clinic for any sort of follow-up that you might want to do with the patient. So let's say this patient was in and we want to follow up with that patient, maybe make a phone call out to them maybe 2 weeks in advance. So you can select a type, you can select how far out in advance, so maybe it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 months, whatever the case may be, whatever follow-up you want to do with them. And then the system will calculate the event schedule date based on the duration or the length of time out that you have specified. And let's say we just want to call the patient to follow up and see how they are doing. Okay, I can click the create button. That's going to create an event where on my to-do list or in my action list, about 3 weeks from now, I'm going to get a reminder to follow up with this patient to see how they're doing. As you're closing out appointment outcomes, this would likely also be a time when you would want to maybe evaluate what type of recall they are on. So maybe you want to see them every 3 months instead of 6 months, or whatever the case may be. So similar to what you saw in the patient information tab where you can manage the recall schedules, if you double click on this field, you have the ability to add or remove a patient from recall schedules. I'll just go ahead and cancel that for now. Once you've got the outcome information entered, you can just go ahead and click the submit button. When a patient is on a recall schedule, what will pop up is a listing of any existing event reminders that are already on the schedule. So this patient is due for a 6 months wax removal. The next reminder is scheduled to occur on January 1st of 2014, and the next annual hearing test is scheduled to occur on June 28th. Now, the system is proposing new times for this event based on what is already on the schedule. So there isn't much change here, but if we contact a patient and say they need to come in for a 6 month wax removal, but it takes them a month to get in, the next recall may be scheduled, less than 6 months from the current date of the appointment. So this will just tell us that, the proposed new date would be some, future time. And so if you want to go ahead and reschedule that event, then you can just denote by selecting the reschedule checkbox and click OK. And then the system will go ahead and submit the appointment outcomes as well as reschedule the events accordingly. Okay, I'll click the close window button. That brings me back out to the schedule. Now what you'll notice on the schedule is that the appointment has been, color has changed from the blue to now just a solid white. Any appointments that have had appointment outcomes entered are going to appear in all white text and all in uppercase. So that's a visual indication that I have completed that appointment outcome. And so that just lets you know that when you're looking at the schedule and you see appointments still in some other color, that would that's your visual indication that appointment does not have an appointment outcome entered. So as soon as they turn to all white, as this one is, and so is this one, then that's your visual indication that the appointment outcome has been entered. Well, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to in training session number 1. So I thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us here at OddServe. We're happy to assist in any way in which we can. I wish you the very best and have a great day. Thank you for watching.